How many times have you heard someone say that a girl is such a good girl just because she doesn't bother anyone, doesn't question things, or has learned to keep her feelings all to herself? What if I told you that this same girl, so often praised for her obedience, is actually paying a very high price? The price of slowly disappearing day after day. There's something mysterious going on here, something no one usually tells you clearly, but that Carl Jung, a famous scholar of human feelings, noticed a long time ago. Jung taught that inside every person there is a true part, full of dreams, desires, and real feelings. But many girls learn from a very young age that in order to receive affection, approval, and attention, they need to hide this true part, as if they were invisible princesses living in a silent kingdom. They believe that by always being kind, quiet, and obedient, they earn a safe place in people's hearts. But while they do that, they begin to slowly fade, losing their voice and forgetting who they really are. Today, we're going to explore together this strange paradox of the good daughter, a deep secret that Carl Jung uncovered about how girls are rewarded precisely when they disappear. I want you to stay with me until the end, because we're not only going to reveal this mystery, but also discover how to bring back the strength, the voice, and the magic that every girl carries within. I promise that by the end of this video, you'll never look at that quiet, obedient girl you know so well in the same way again. Are you ready to discover this secret with me? From a very early age, girls learn that there's a right way to be. They notice that when they are calm, polite, and don't complain, adults smile at them, say they're special, and that they're proud of them. That seems like a good thing, doesn't it? But the problem begins when they understand that they only receive love if they hide what they truly feel. When they're sad, they must pretend everything is fine. When they want to say no, they end up saying yes, just so they don't disappoint anyone. That's how the so-called good girl is born. Carl Jung explained that every person has something inside called the self, which is like our true self. But when a girl is forced to fit into what others expect of her, this true self starts getting locked away in a dark place deep in the mind. Little by little, she trades who she really is for a version molded to please others. And the more she disappears, the more praise she receives. That's the great paradox. She is rewarded for not being herself. This situation begins to create a kind of mask. Jung called this the persona, an image we use to show others, but one that often doesn't represent who we truly are inside. The good girl wears this mask every single day. She smiles when she's sad, obeys even when she wants to run away, and never says what she truly thinks. She learns that being invisible is safer than being authentic, and over time something starts to hurt deep inside. It's a pain no one sees, but it keeps growing. It's the silent scream of someone who was never allowed to make mistakes, never allowed to be messy, never allowed to say, "This hurts me." The good girl gets so used to pleasing others that she forgets how to please herself. She no longer knows what she likes, what she wants, or who she really is. And still she keeps receiving applause, as if everything were perfect. But is that really love? Or is it just a reward for following the rules of a world that doesn't understand a girl's heart? Jung invites us to look at this dilemma more deeply, because only when we can see what has been hidden can we begin to free what has been silenced. And the journey of rescue begins now. Shall we go together? As the good girl grows up, she keeps following those invisible rules she learned as a child. She works hard to get good grades, be kind to everyone, and never cause any trouble. On the outside, she seems happy and balanced. But inside, something starts to break. Carl Jung said that when we deny parts of ourselves for too long, those parts don't disappear. They just hide. They go into a place inside the mind he called the shadow. The shadow holds everything the girl was forced to hide: the anger she couldn't show, the sadness she had to swallow, the desires she thought were wrong. And over time, this shadow begins to express itself in quiet but intense ways. It may show up as anxiety, unexplained sadness, a feeling of emptiness, or even difficulty expressing emotions. The girl keeps getting compliments but starts feeling more and more distant from herself. And this is where the biggest confusion begins. She thinks something is wrong with her. Why am I sad if everyone says I'm amazing? She wonders. But the truth is, there's nothing wrong with her. What's wrong is the system that taught her to dim her light in order to be accepted. Carl Jung believed that every person must become whole by uniting what S in the light with what Eshes in the shadow. And that only happens when we have the courage to look within and embrace what we were taught to hide. The problem is, many girls are afraid to show who they truly are. They've learned that if they're too honest, people might call them selfish, difficult, or even mean. So even while they're hurting, they keep smiling. Even when exhausted, they keep serving. Even when confused, they keep trying to please. And that creates a kind of silent suffering that few people notice, but that slowly drains the joy of living. The good girl, who once learned to disappear in order to be loved, now needs to learn how to appear in order to love herself. And that is a hard step, but a necessary one. Because, as Jung said, what you resist persists. If she keeps running from herself, the pain will never leave. But if she has the courage to look within, she will discover something powerful. The real girl who was always there, waiting to be set free. When the girl starts to feel she's not living her truth, something inside her begins to stir. Maybe it's a sudden cry, a tiredness that never goes away, or a strange urge to disappear for a while. Carl Jung explained that this discomfort is a sign that the soul is crying out for attention. It's as if, behind the good girl's mask, something is shouting, "I exist, please hear me." And that is the beginning of a great transformation. At that moment, the mask begins to crack. Not because she wants to cause trouble, but because she can no longer pretend. The girl realizes she's tired of always smiling when she wants to cry, of always saying yes when she wants to say no. She starts to see that being a good girl cost her too much. It cost her spontaneity, her freedom, her joy, and a powerful question begins to rise. Who am I, really, when no one is watching? This is where Jung brings in one of his most beautiful ideas, the process of individuation. That, as the name he gave to the journey each person takes to become who they truly are. Not what others expect, but what lies at the very center of the soul. For the good girl, this means taking off the armor of perfection, letting her voice be heard, accepting that she can make mistakes, feel anger, have opinions, and still be worthy of love. But the world isn't always ready for that. Some people will say she's changed, others will pull away. Some will try to bring her back to the sweet little girl she used to be. And this is the biggest challenge, to keep going anyway. Jung said that being true to yourself takes courage because it means swimming against the current. But it's on that hard path that true strength is born. The good girl starts to realize that disappearing to be accepted is no longer an option. She needs to show up, even when she's afraid. She needs to be herself, even without applause. Because little by little she understands that she wasn't born to fit into a mold, but to be whole, free, and alive. And that's when the healing begins. Not from an illness, but from forgetfulness. The forgetting of who she always was. When the good girl decides to step out of the shadows, she begins a deep rescue. Not of something outside herself, but of something that was always within, just asleep. Carl Jung said that healing begins when we look with love at our forgotten parts, the ones we left behind to please others. And it is in that moment that the girl starts to reconnect with her true essence, spontaneous, strong, sensitive, and full of desire to live life on her own terms. That reunion feels like coming home after a long time away. At first, it may seem strange. She might not remember what she enjoys, what she wants to do, or how to feel happy. But little by little, she relearns how to listen to her own voice. She begins to realize she can cry without guilt, say no without fear, and choose paths that make sense to her, even if others don't understand. And that freedom, even when scary, begins to heal her oldest wounds. But this path is not quick nor easy. Sometimes she slips, hides again, feels like pleasing everyone all over again. But now, she knows what she's doing. She recognizes the mask when it shows up. And that changes everything. As Jung said, we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. She begins to see her fears, her insecurities, her desires, and that makes her stronger. Now the girl no longer wants to be the good daughter everyone expects. She wants to be the real daughter, the one who feels, who makes mistakes, who learns, who transforms. And through that transformation, she begins to teach others too. Because when one girl chooses to show up, she gives permission for others to do the same. Her courage lights a path for many other girls who are still trapped in the fantasy of perfection. This rescue is an act of love, the truest kind of love there is, the kind that starts from the inside out. The girl who once learned to disappear in order to be loved now understands that she will only be truly loved when she is seen as a whole. And even afraid, she keeps going, because the freedom to be who she is worth more than any praise. Now that the girl has begun to set herself free, she realizes something very important. She never needed to be perfect to deserve love. Carl Jung teaches us that true healing comes through integration, when all parts of our soul, even the ones that seemed wrong, are embraced with respect. The girl understands that she no longer has to hide in order to be accepted. She doesn't need to dim her light to please others. She only needs to be whole. Being whole doesn't mean being happy all the time. It means having space to feel everything: joy and sadness, laughter and tears, doubt and courage. It means being truthful about what's happening inside, even when it's scary. The good girl discovers that being herself is the greatest gift she can offer the world, and that her voice, once so silenced, has power. The power to transform her life and inspire others to do the same. She also begins to forgive herself for having hidden away, for believing she had to be perfect to be loved. But now she knows that was just her way of surviving in a world that didn't know how to handle her sensitivity. And that's okay. Now it's different. Now she doesn't want to survive. She wants to live. With all the colors, all the feelings, and all the truth she carries in her heart. The girl who once was applauded for disappearing is now admired for showing up, for speaking her mind, for no longer letting herself be shaped to fit. And that's the real paradox. What once seemed like weakness, her sensitivity, her depth, her willingness to say no, is actually her greatest strength. Carl Jung believed that the journey of becoming who you truly are requires courage, and this girl has found hers. So if you are, or once were, that good girl, know that it's okay to start over. It's okay to rediscover yourself along the way. What matters is that you never abandon yourself again. Because the world doesn't need perfect girls. It needs real ones. And the more real we are, the freer we become. The girl who once learned to disappear in order to be accepted now understands that her presence is far too valuable to hide. She no longer needs to fit into tight molds or pretend she doesn't feel. She can exist fully, with all her colors, all her dreams, all her fears. And that is liberating. Carl Jung said that being who we truly are takes courage, but that courage is what saves us from the pain of living a life that is Nietzsche ours, looking inward, embracing the shadow, removing the mask, relearning to love her own voice. All of this is part of the healing. The good girl may have learned to be silent, but now she chooses to speak. She may have learned to please, but now she chooses to live with truth. And when she does, something magical happens. She starts to shine from the inside out, and that light no one can dim. The world may try to convince her to hide again. It may call it rebellion, it may say she's being selfish. But now she knows. Taking care of herself isn't selfish. it's survival. And being true is the greatest gift she can offer, first to herself, and then to everyone around her. Because a girl who reconnects with her soul transforms the world just by existing. So, if you saw yourself in this story, take a deep breath and remember, you're not alone. Many girls were taught to disappear, but now it's time to show up, with gentleness, with strength, with truth. You don't have to be perfect. You only have to be you. And that is already enough, because who you truly are with all your imperfections is beautiful, whole, and more than enough. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone else who needs to hear it too. Leave your comment down below. I want to hear your story. And if you feel this content helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and leave a like. That way we can keep going together on this journey of awakening, because every girl who once disappeared deserves to find herself again.